A lot of engineering history tells the story of heroic efforts in the workshop, the lab, tinkering, designing, thinking. But one thing we know is you haven't really invented something until you've got it out there with users. You've put it out there and you've tested it. And for cars, that means you haven't really got your invention out into the world until someone's taken the first road trip. Today, Rod just told me the story of the world's very first road trip, where Bertha Benz set off to her mother's house with her 2 teenage boys, and on the way, invented brakes, the category of road trip testing, and set off the automotive industry. Enjoy.
So Will, I've always been obsessed with petrol. The possibilities. I love the science.
Smell the fumes.
Oh, I love the
Out on
smell.
the racetrack.
Yeah, the taste, the texture.
Yeah, because talking about cars is often what we do.
It's all I talk about. No, just petrol. I only care about petrol. I like its possibilities.
Road trips.
Road trips. Yes, that's all.
Commuting
it's
to
good for.
work.
Oh, now you're talking my wet dreams. It's also the deep, expansive, and I'd say even beautiful history of this liquid of the gods.
Okay, yeah.
And where do you start?
With dinosaurs.
Is that where you start?
I don't know.
That's going to be a long one. This is going to be a 9-part episode, 7 hours apiece, starting with dinosaurs. Now, I wasn't sure. I was thinking, I need to dive into petrol.
Yeah.
For a moment. And so I thought, where will I start? Because I once worked as a pump jockey.
Did you really?
I did. I used to
did you
driveway service.
You were the people sitting in the car, hey, fill her up, Sonny Jim?
Yep.
You were the
And
Jim?
while you're at it,
You were
check
the
the
Sonny
thing. I was the Sonny and the Jim, and they'd say, while you're at it, check the thing and the what's his name. And
That's cool.
It was before I had a license, so they'd pop the hood and I'd look at it and go,
Yep.
Engine.
You have engine?
Yeah, it seems to be smelly, so it's working. It was hilarious. The mechanics thought I was an absolute moron because I didn't know how anything worked. I'm like, I'm 16. Why the fuck would I care how a car works? Also,
No, there are 16-year-olds who care.
Oh, I know. I was surrounded by them in my high school briefly. Anyway, so I thought, okay, I'm going to start with the history of petrol retail sales.
This is the episode too.
I know.
Ready.
I know.
History of petrol retail sales.
I've been building to this for, this is a 4-year ambition, 4-year mission. So purpose-built gas stations or petrol stations, filling stations, they started to appear in the US around 1905,
Okay.
which is exciting.
Because before it was horses and you didn't have to fill
Yes.
your horse up.
Well, not
You filled them
quite.
up on hay.
Not
or
quite. Before that, there were other ways.
To fill up your horse?
Yes.
Or fill up your car?
Yeah, liquid hay.
Just pump this stuff straight into your horse.
Sort of the original
See, the problem is
ethanol.
your changeover times, right? You got to get your hay in real fast if you're on a road trip.
Problem is, when you get in real fast in liquid form, comes out real fast in
I do
liquid
like
form
the
too.
idea of you're on a horse road trip and you got to stop for your fill your horse up with your hay,
Yep.
and then you go and get your muesli bars and your
Your windscreen wipers.
ice break. It's you get your iced coffee. You've got to have that.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. So 1905. This is just purpose-built gas stations. So at first, however, people would pump their own gas. They'd go to the curbside and there'd be a Bowser or something there and they'd pump their own.
Just at the curbside.
Just the curbside of
Someone's leaving just like
like a
barrels
garage.
of petrol around.
No, like literally Bowsers and pumps and stuff. No, but they'd be in
How
front
do
of
you
a
pay for
business.
it? In front of a business.
But it wasn't purposely.
Like it's another business and they got petrol there as well. Like
Yeah.
we're a haberdashery
Yes,
and
yes.
Bowser.
We have hats, we have linens, and we have
That's-
fuels.
Hat is milliner.
Yeah, I know. I was reinforcing haberdashery. So the first drive-in service station opened in Pennsylvania, 1913, so quite a few years later.
I like the idea that they thought drive-in was I mean, I can get that there would be a moment when they're like, all right, okay, you got to go in the back of a hardware store and you get like a jerry can. And it's like, what if you bring your car to the moment?
Yeah. In Australia, so September 1914, there was a fuel pump that was invented by a Canadian by the name of Bowser.
His name was Bowser.
Who knew?
No.
Yeah.
So the Bowser is actually named after
Yeah.
Mr. What was his first name?
SF. Samuel Fluoxetine.
King Cooper Bowser.
Yeah. So if you'd invented it, we'd all go to the petrol grant.
I can't believe that.
Yeah.
I can't believe that
I know.
Bowser wasn't a
I
word
know.
before.
I
It
know.
just makes so much sense.
Yeah, that's how much it's taken on a real meaning.
Wow, that is great.
So it was a Canadian mob, SF Bowser and Co. And it was exhibited in 1914 in Melbourne, and everyone was very excited.
Well, like the Melbourne show exhibited, and here is the
Yes.
future. It's a
Mr. Bowser's
It's a Bowser.
pump.
Finally, we've found a Bowser. I've never heard of what a Bowser before, but that
Now I
definitely
know
is a
what one
Bowser.
is. Yeah. So this is what, 1914. By 1916, the Melbourne City Council said that most garages had installed the Bowser system. So they really got on board.
Cool.
They're very excited. And 5 years later, petrol pumps were increasingly common. They were often still found at the curbsides, but they were dotted around Australia as well. So we got there. So that's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
But the first private citizen fuel stop in the world.
Private citizen fuel stop.
Yeah, the private citizen who first bought fuel for their vehicle.
First bought fuel for their vehicle. First bought the fuel.
First went, I'm going
to need to fill this up.
I need some
My
juice.
car doesn't just have one tank forever.
My velocipede needs some juju juice. So it happened nearly 20 years earlier in 1888. So this is just the beginning of the time where people would buy their fuel, not necessarily petrol, but fuels of different descriptions, out of barrels at hardware stores or grocery stores. So you'd go and dip your ladle and...
I get some apples and a ladle of fuel.
Oh, if I can imagine balancing it on the way out too. Like, what's that smell? I don't know, but I feel woozy.
I just get a plastic bag full of oil.
I can imagine the insanities of people pouring it all over themselves, then lighting a cigarette and going...
I don't see why.
Because it's silly. The olden time people, we've talked about them. So the fuel at the time that this first purchase occurred was called Ligroin.
Ligroin.
The vendor was an apothecary shop or a pharmacy in Weissloch, Germany. And the person, and you're going to need to brace yourself for this, the first recreational fuel purchaser was, are you ready for this? A woman.
Welcome
Thank you.
to The Wholesome Show, the podcast that vigorously inhales noxious gases from the whole of science.
Pertinent to the episode. That's my first.
The Wholesome Show is me, Will Grant,
And me, Roderick Griffin, filler up Lamberts. That's what they used to call me.
Sonny Jim.
Yeah, filler up Sonny.
Filler up Sonny Jim Lamberts.
Lambert's the third.
Did you enjoy your time as a fill 'em up Sonny Jim boy?
No, it was actually handy having the keys to a place that had all that snack foods when you're a teenager and would...
I get all the snacks you can eat.
Well, also, maybe we would occasionally indulge in herbal materials that would enhance your desire
I've
to...
never heard of anyone smoking cones in a petrol station.
Holy shit, the mechanic's little room, stank of weed and international roast. That's all it smelled of.
The classic combination
Yeah, it was.
there.
Mechanics didn't like me because I was a fancy boy who had an education and stuff.
Yeah, I get it.
They weren't keen.
You're off to do something else, looking down on this place.
Yeah,
16-year-old snot just filling up the tanks.
Yeah, it was very weird. Anyway, it was great.
A woman.
It was great. A woman. Karl Friedrich Michael Weiland was born in Mühlberg, Deutschland, Germany, November of 1844. His parents were Josephine Weiland, and his father was a train driver guy whose name was Johann George Benz. She, his mother, married a few months after Karl was born, Johann George Benz. So it's scandalous.
Yeah.
Scandalous. Mid 19th
Hang on, they're getting
century.
married and it's scandalous.
Because she was already up the duff.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. So the timing was a little bit
Premarital
imprecise.
coitus.
Okay. Or the miracles.
All the miracles. It's what they do.
It's one of the two.
It says it right here.
One of the two.
So when he was 2, his father died of pneumonia, and his name was then changed to Karl Friedrich Benz to honour his father.
Nice.
So there was some kind of deal where you're dead, you're not a bastard anymore. I don't know how it worked in middle 1800s
But he got a name.
Germany.
He got a name.
He got his father's surname. So they were really poor, but his mother still wanted to give him a really good education. So she's a good lady. She wanted to make sure wee Karl was doing all right. Apparently he was a prodigious student. Prodigious.
In what way?
Well, he prodiged.
Did a lot. Did high quality things.
High quality.
What were his studies?
He was very science focused.
Okay.
And engineering-y. And when he was 9, he started going to a science-focused sort of school. Now, one source says a lyceum, but I don't know if that's a type of school or the school.
High school.
Is it?
I think so.
So he went to a science-focused high school. He went on to Karlsruhe's Polytechnical School and graduated when he was 19.
Sounds about appropriate.
Yeah,
Is that slow or fast? I don't know.
It just is.
Okay.
And at first, when he was at that school, he was really into being a locksmith. Part of me gets it because it'd be weird, but not for years.
It's a job.
It's definitely a job.
And you can break into people's houses if you need.
I didn't think of that. But then he changed directions and he decided to go into locomotive engineering, much like his dad sort of was involved with. And he wanted then, after he graduated, he wanted through a few technical jobs. He had a few mechanical engineering focused companies that took him on, but he never really settled. So he worked as a draftsman and a designer in a scale factory.
Scales.
Yeah,
Okay.
scales. So German. We make scales. They are very good scales.
It's the designer as well.
Yeah.
Are there lots of different designs?
7.
I assume that you've kind of perfected the fruit scales and then you use the same until digital come out and that's it.
But what if it's not fruit?
Fruit, vegetables?
Cats.
Yeah, okay. You got to measure some cats.
He also worked for a bridge building company and an iron construction company. So he wandered around all, physical engineering-y stuff. In 1871, he's about 27, he teamed up with a friendly chap, or as I remember from my German days, ein netter Kerl, which means like a nice chap,
Okay.
a guy called August Ritter, and they created the Iron Foundry and Mechanical Workshop. Guess what they do?
Iron Foundry and Mechanics?
Yes, and
It's
gloves.
a very straight name.
It's very German.
Yeah, okay.
What does it do? What we told you. But this is in Mannheim, but later they renamed it to the Factory for Machines for Sheet Metal Working.
Again, if you're looking up what does it do, this is the factory that it does it.
SEO maximization 170 years ago.
Maybe German is just a language that is designed for search engine
It is.
optimization.
It
It's
is.
just say everything precisely and you know what it is.
And if there's 7 nouns to describe a new thing, you just bang all 7 nouns together and that's the new name of the thing. I cannot think of a single example in German now, but the number of times you'd read it and be like, dog, cat, bag, lid, 2 feet, tie on strap. And you're like, that must be the dog bag 2 feet tie.
I don't know if they need those things, but sure.
No, well, they might have. That one didn't go well. Anyway, neither did this company. Didn't go well.
What?
No.
Iron foundries sound good and machine works.
They do, don't they? But it turned out Ritter was, at least according to some sources, the quote was unreliable.
Oh,
And so they didn't make money. They ended up losing money.
I thought he was a good fellow.
Yeah, he seemed to
You
be. but
defined him in German as a good fellow.
It's because I remembered it. I don't know if it's true.
Well, why did you put it in? He's clearly not.
But we didn't know that.
He's done 2 things. He's founded the company and then he failed the
and
company.
then fucked it up.
So I don't think that was enough to say he's a good fellow.
No, I agree.
He's not a good fellow.
I don't agree with what I said earlier. I retract all
Good.
German. And the tools of the company were impounded.
Oh, why? Bankrupt.
Bankrupt. Yeah,
Give him
no.
back to the bank.
Well, yeah, if not bankrupt, pretty rooted.
Okay.
Lots and lots of debt. Now, a lot of this stuff comes from the Mercedes-Benz website. It's quite interesting. They have a lot of information. Karl was bailed out by an unexpected party, his fiancée.
Oh, nice.
2 years before they got married in 1872, she used part of her dowry to help prop up the failing iron construction company. When he lost that company shortly after, he moved on and he used his fiancée's continued support and her business acumen to form a new venture. So in 1883, a few years later, he sets up Benz & Co. Rheinische Gasmotorenfabrik, so the Rhine gas motor building factory. Again, very literal, except for the names. So the company apparently did a splendid business, and it gave Benz the financial security he needed to turn to his lifelong dream, creation of the first automobile.
There you go.
Petrol-driven automobile.
There you go. I thought I had heard the name.
Benz sounds familiar?
It's really familiar. I really thought maybe it was something there.
A different Benz?
His lifelong dream to create something that hadn't been created before. The first one of them.
The first one, well, particularly, it seems petrol-driven. There are weird other versions of things we've talked about or have referred to.
Horse-drawn carriages with various steam engine
and
things.
clockwork, crazy shit. There's all kinds of experiments.
And there's clearly trains at this time and
Clearly trains.
it's
Yes.
not that different.
Well, look, I'd rather drive my car to work than my train.
Yeah, but that's rails versus roads. And
Yeah,
so
and
you could
boilers.
theoretically, well, no, but there are coal-powered cars, or there have been coal-powered cars.
Should there be?
No, there shouldn't. But
There are coal-powered cars.
there have been coal-powered cars.
Why is this Nissan so cheap? It's the last one we got left that runs on coal.
I just love the idea that you got the driver and then the passenger has a job. It's like...
And it's not a good one.
You know, it's like when you're a 17-year-old and you're driving with your mates and everyone's like, shotgun. It's like, yeah, but when you shotgun here, you got to be shoveling the coal from the boiler.
And if it rains, you also got to stick your arm out the window and move the wiper because that side's broken.
Well, I don't know why that's associated with coal.
No, it's not. It just
You
can
can have
happen.
a working wiper in your coal-powered
You're talking
car.
about your mates' cars, in the early days.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
always something dodgy wrong with them.
Yeah, well, mine had the bullet holes in it.
That doesn't stop its function, but it's a fucking cool brand.
It didn't stop its function.
You put them there yourself, didn't you? So you set up that company. There was a number of failed attempts to create this car, but there are a few models that started working. So the Model 1, very imaginatively named, was finished in December of 1885. Single cylinder, 2.5 horsepower, and 3 wire wheels.
Wow.
One in the
like
front,
bike
bicycle, yeah.
bike wheels. Yeah.
And that's what I say. A lot of the design was adapted from contemporary bicycle
Because
manufacturing.
Bikes at the time booming.
Going off, yeah.
And like quadricycles are early models of cars here.
Yep.
So 4-wheeled bikes and then strap a motor to it.
What could possibly go wrong? I just love how flimsy they always look. It cracks me up every time. Old planes and old cars, I just think, oh, Jesus, no. Like old planes were made out of cloth and balsa wood.
Yeah, but you can understand their idea of, okay, if it's going in the air, it's got to be light.
Yeah.
Like we've got to use the lightest material that we've got. And so...
And to be fair, even today, if your plane hits the ground, modern materials don't save you.
I get the feeling, though, if you crash a cloth and balsa wood plane, you're not hurt. You're sort of going through all the wood, like in a movie, when you crash through a set that is designed to be crashed through. You would crash through a plane that is made of balsa wood and cotton and go, wow, that was comedically awesome. But
is this plane on the ground?
Not going very fast. I'm assuming it's going slower than walking speed, sort of thing.
And low enough that you could just jump off.
Probably.
Okay, I'm okay with that. So this car they claim could reach a maximum of 25 miles per hour, but I think that's smells like a stretch.
Yeah, okay.
But for this, he was granted the original patent for the motor car in 1886.
For the whole thing?
Yep.
For the whole thing of the motor car?
Supposedly. And there was some sources call it the birth certificate of the automobile, that patent.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
It's very romantic. And he probably had about 25 of these models. But it had its problems.
Number one.
Is that one?
What came after one? Was it 2?
2.
Oh.
We'll get to 2.
And we get to 25.
There's one at the top.
Okay. No, that's cool. It is very, it's a penny farthing bicycle that you've strapped a bike and an extra seat to.
And it's very steampunk too. Like it's got all the coolness.
And I can see the little boiler where you put I don't know, are we putting petrol in there or oil or something?
Legroin. Sounds like a bad criminal.
Believe me, if it was legal to drive one of these things around on the streets today.
I would. That's number 3 below. I'll get to number 3 in a tick.
Okay.
But, they're as you'd expect. Although the first one was extremely wire spokes and very, it looks delicate. So number 2, it was also a 3-wheeler, but then it was converted to 4 wheels for testing purposes.
Sounds like enough of a change that it should deserve its own model number.
I think so. You've added a wheel, new model, 2. And it also had axle pivot steering, which we all know is a way to steer.
Yeah? What happens then?
Apparently it's good. It's gooder than the one before. The axle.
Nice. There you go. You science communicator, you.
You son of an engineer. You have an unfair advantage. So,
I think maybe it's your mechanical knowledge that looks at anything mechanical and just goes, well, that's spaghetti.
Yeah. No, look, my mechanical knowledge is second only to my ability to navigate and read maps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But then, look, they only built one of those apparently. I don't know why. Then we get Model 3.
Oh, I was going to go Model 4 or something like that.
It's just a 3. He's a very precise man.
Yeah.
This is when it was really going off, and this was the first saleable car apparently.
So he put this to market.
He gets there. He built quite a few. At first, though, there was only he had 3 prototypes. But yeah, it's a wooden spoked back wheels. The front wheel had a solid rubber tire, which is not a bad thing. Mm-hmm. The wheelbase, so it was basically about 1.6 meters long, and it was 1.25 meters wide. So it was kind of not huge, but big enough.
Okay.
You get 3 people in it. And he ended up eventually selling a small series of these, and you could get a few sick mods. Like you could have a folding roof or an extra seat.
Nice.
I know, not quite a stereo.
Where's the extra seat go?
In the car.
How do you fit it in if it's
You
this?
reconfigure.
All right, cool.
Yeah. You want the drawing? I'll give you the diagrams.
I want to know what other upgrades you can get.
There weren't many, but that was the 2
Plush
that stood
trim.
out. Yes, definitely plush trim.
Upgrade the stereo, an 8-track stereo or something like that.
You upgrade your band, your car band. It was in a little steam-driven trailer.
You could have
behind.
something pulled behind you, yeah. It's just one guy and a sousaphone.
Ding, 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 ding.
That is not the noise of a sousaphone.
No.
Sousaphone's a big trumpet. Tuba.
I'm thinking
It's
of
the wraparound tuba jobby.
Is that a sousaphone?
Which I'm imagining is the noise that you want. You're driving around rural Germany
Definitely
in a
it's
3
polka.
or 4-wheeled car. Yeah, exactly.
It's all polkas.
Exactly. And so when you're coming into town, you have a polka music driving before your and
The
behind
fancy
your
cars also featured an accordionist.
Yeah, okay. Well, I wasn't splurging that much.
No.
I'm just getting a walking sousaphone guy.
I want the accordion.
Yeah, I get it. You're a fancy guy.
I am. When these bad boys first made their way into the public eye, however, the reception was not super exuberant.
People didn't care or people were angry?
Well, I think they were more like meh.
Okay, a lot of people wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
That's just the thing.
Yeah, but also I'll get to this in a moment. Some of the demos went better than others.
No.
Yeah, I know, hard to believe. So selling these buggers was not like you laid down misère, look, I've got a car, and everyone went, fuck yeah, I need a car.
Yeah.
They did not. So some sources attribute the ultimate success of his car and the company that followed to the marketing smarts of the Parisian guy called Émile Roger, who set up the first sales office overseas, in London, in fact. And it was apparently this car was the first gasoline-powered private car sold in England. And that's all great. Like, yay, well done, Émile.
Cool.
But what this ignores is part of the account that doesn't talk about the real first marketing effort that kicked this whole thing off.
Yes.
And that was because of his wife's can-do moxie and attitude.
What did she do?
Frau Benz.
What was her name?
Bertha. Cecilia Bertha Ringer, originally. So she was born in 1849 in Pforzheim. We all know Pforzheim's beautiful, beautiful. It's renowned for its
I don't know why you say these things.
cake stands.
I don't know why you say you should look it up or not look it up.
I did. Well, you're not convinced?
Cake stands.
Cake stands. Historic and modern. She was the daughter of August Friedrich and Karl Friedrich Ringer.
They both had the middle name Friedrich?
No, the wife's surname was Friederike, and the husband's middle name was Friedrich, obviously. She was the third of 9 kids. 9 kids.
Ah, that was the thing back then.
Yeah.
That was the sport. You get bored, you have another kid.
That was the sport.
Yeah, it was.
Squeeze out another one. Let's see what happens. So her father was a carpenter and a master builder, and their family was considered pretty damn wealthy. So all the children, including the daughters, shock horror, were very well educated. Bertha was also described as ambitious, curious, with an alert mind and a great interest in technological innovations.
I get it. She's looking for a husband who's going to make the first automobile.
Build me a car, mate.
She was probably thinking that beforehand. I want to marry the first automobile maker.
So she met Karl during an excursion organised by the social club called Eintracht, which apparently means unity. This is our social club, Unity.
Yeah.
Doesn't smell good.
I don't know.
Welcome to Unity.
It could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
As we know, social clubs in that part of the world have gone pretty bad.
Their reputation changed over a few years.
That one might not have been that bad. Maybe they just take walks.
Still called Unity. This is about 1869, 1870 they met. They fell in love. They soon started making big plans for their wedding. So they both agreed, though. They didn't want to stay in Pforzheim, even though the cake stands. So Karl set up a shop in Mannheim. And after their wedding, Bertha was supposed to join him as soon as he could get his company going well.
Yeah. That's all of these weddings back then. It's like, let's get married. Now I've got to go off and set myself up.
And
you
then
stay
you
with
can
your
come.
parents for a while.
Yep.
Do you want to set yourself up beforehand? Or just go together and work it out as you go along?
You're so modern. They're not. The problem was that setting up phase was when he started hanging out with his buddy Ritter, who fucked up the original company.
The not good guy.
Yeah. So this is the point where Bertha persuades her father not only to pay the dowry before the wedding, but also an advance on her inheritance so that he could buy out Ritter and get rolling. So they get married, 1872. They rented a home in Mannheim, but Karl soon started to make a bit of money, built them their own apartment. They had a couple of rooms, they had a kitchen, and it was all strapped onto the workshop. Sounds lovely. Then their first son, Eugen, was born, and they were deeply in debt.
Sure, I get it.
Fantastic.
I've heard setting up a car company is not the cheapest thing in the world ever.
It costs hundreds. For the next 15 years, basically, they were dominated by financial problems up and down.
Yeah.
He always needed more money. The workshop equipment was expensive. His inventions weren't always immediately lucrative. This didn't stop them having 4 more kids along the way, another boy and 3 girls.
It's the sport, as I said.
Yeah, we're poor, let's baby.
Well, he's had a hard day. They've had a hard day doing technological progress in the workshop.
Yes.
And they go to the bedroom above the workshop and
they say, let's
have some biological progress.
Put a baby in your tum-tum. In 1877, they were forced to sell the workshop and all its equipment.
Oh, shit.
Which is a bummer.
Yeah.
But despite all this, Bertha would stand by her husband furiously and vigorously, and often literally in the workshop. So she'd hang out with him and they would discuss technical stuff, and Bertha would get more and more technically adept.
Yeah.
And witnesses says at the time, around this period anyway, she knew probably at least as much, if not more, about the engines than he did. They say nearly as much, but I suspect.
Look, let's just assume they both know more than you and me.
I'm going to happily assume that.
And probably both knew a fair bit if they're together inventing a car.
So in 1878, a year later, he was fiddling with his latest invention, a car driving machine thing for commercial use. That's what they didn't call it. It was, of course, the horseless carriage. There were many teething problems, but Bertha's determination and talent helped drive him. She was very, very strong about this.
What'd she do?
She pushed.
Her talent is pushing.
Her talent is not only pushing.
Okay.
How dare you categorize her?
No, I'm just asking what her talent is, and you said pushed.
So she would, with things like technical implementations, so she would offer him ideas, go, what about if you tweak the Spretzer valve and put a new Stickler in it? Boom. Direct quote from a technical value of the Model 0.5. And on New Year's Eve, so a year later, 2 years after they sold a bunch of stuff and then he was fiddling with his things, New Year's Eve 1879, the two-stroke engine they've been working on suddenly starts to work. New Year's Eve, and they said, it's better than hearing the bells. The two-stroke engine goes, there's no car at the moment, just an engine.
Well, I get it.
But it's cool, two-stroke, it works, which is great. But then, 1882, shortly after the birth of their fourth child, they're in financial stup again, which is a bummer. So this led to them founding a Mannheim petrol engine factory with some other partners, folks who actually had money.
Okay.
Benz fell out with them within months.
All right, that seems to be two collaborators he's fallen out with.
Yeah.
Still seems good with his wife.
Yeah.
So technological innovation and making babies.
Not a problem.
But he doesn't seem to work well with other partners that he's not married to.
No, well, apparently they didn't share the automotive vision.
Or maybe he just has, he can collaborate well if he has sex and babies with them. So maybe that's what he should be doing.
Is that the mistake I'm making it work?
That might be the mistake. You need to make sure your collaboration goes all the way. Seal the deal properly, and then you can have a melding of minds.
For any of you budding entrepreneurs, inventors out there who are wondering why it's not quite working, bang your partners.
Maybe. It's just an option.
Nah.
It's just an option.
It's an option. It's true. And it should always be on the table. So once again, after this, 3 months later, the family had nothing. That was 82. In 1883, he set up the Benz and CIE. I don't know. I assume that's short for something.
And CIE.
Benz and CIE, but it's spelt like a word. The Rheinische Gasmotorfabriken Mannheim. So the Rhine gas motor fabric. Mannheim with the new partners. Off he went developing his car. By 1885, he had the Model 1 and he's trying to get them out in public. So this is the sort of where he and Bertha start to coincide here. The first few displays of his invention went bad.
How do they go bad?
So they break down. They wouldn't start at all. The steering would fail.
He gets them out in the street and he throws a golf ball at it to say it's got indestructible spokes.
Exactly.
And it has destructible spokes or something like that.
Well, how about watch this start? Just bump. This is a machine that works.
Look, there is a long history of engineering companies doing tech demos and things going beautifully or things going not beautifully.
Yes, and this is the beginning of that. Well, the beginning of the vehicle industry. Also, there were sources that say there was one where he was demonstrating it with Bertha in the passenger seat and it went out of control and hit a wall.
No. Look, I'm going to drive a pregnant lady towards a wall. Does it have brakes or not? I haven't engineered that bit yet.
That'd be fine. And to be fair, I don't know if she was pregnant then. She might have been between the births. Bystanders were freaked out. The local press reported on the invention, but they weren't psyched about it. They're like, this thing exists and this guy ran his wife into a wall. And
local crackpot does something in his shed.
Exactly. That isn't a horse. Yeah. It wasn't considered suitable for practical use. So even though he had the first patent for this new mega beast, it was met with huge skepticism. And it didn't help that Karl was also described as meticulous, patient and conservative and prone to bouts of self-doubt and depression. He also doubted that it was ever going to be of much practical use either. So he was like, then what's the point?
But he keeps going. What is making him keep going? If he doubts he can do it, he doubts it's of any use, but still, I'll do it.
Bertha.
She wanted a car.
She wanted him to succeed. I need She's into it. How am I going to go and get the kids from swimming lessons?
Yeah, exactly.
In Mannheim.
They will have their towels. They'll need to sit somewhere. Can't sit on a horse.
No.
After their swimming lessons.
No, not all three of them. That's ridiculous. So it didn't go that well. But Bertha would disagree with him whenever he said it wasn't going to work, and she would repeatedly speak out really strongly in public against all the doubters, like, no,
you can
fuck
do
you,
this,
you're wrong,
you can
you're
do this,
wrong,
he can do this, he can do this.
Yeah, it can all be done. This is doable. He's doing it, we're doing it, it's doable. Also, apparently, as a marketer, Karl made a really good engineer. So whenever something went wrong, he'd retreat into his factory and just tinker with stuff and never tell anyone. He didn't want it to see the light of day unless he thought it was perfect.
Yeah, okay.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Bertha, on the other hand, went, no, screw that. We need to win public trust. And she was also acutely aware, a few miles away, another German engineer, Gottlieb Daimler.
Oh my God, I've heard of that name.
You have. The Gottlieb. Luxury vehicles. He'd invented a horseless carriage as well, and it was the worst. It was the world's first four-wheeled high-speed automobile. So in 1888, she was frustrated by her husband's apparent unwillingness to act on his own, so she took matters into her own hands.
What did she do?
She listened to this message. Bertha took a trip, and what follows what I'm going to tell you now was introduced by Wired magazine as not just the first documented road trip in an automobile, but also a trip that included the first road repairs, the first automotive marketing stunt, the first case of a wife borrowing her husband's car without asking, and the first violation of intercity highway laws in a motor vehicle.
It's a lot of a checklist.
It is. It's quite a tick.
That's great fun.
Yeah. Until this point, apparently, according to some sources, there'd been cars and car trips, etc., but most of those were steam vehicles, or they were multi-passenger sort of weird bus arrangements pulled by horses or other strange contraptions. But there wasn't this privately run.
So there were contraptions on the road. Then. So we've got horses and we've got carriages pulling horses, but there's
steam-driven
other things. Steam sounds pretty close to like a motor,
but not everywhere. Like I don't think they were common, and no one tended to sort of take them on a trip. No one, the family didn't have their steam-driven horse floats and just take it for a drive. So the idea of this private car thing was just the way this article in Jalopnik puts it. The idea of a private car, especially a petroleum car, used to take a private road trip in 1888 was basically how we'd think of taking a teleporter trip today.
Okay.
Now, I think that's a little extreme, but I get their point.
No, see, well, yeah, okay. I'm with you. I think seeing as you could probably take a horse and carriage to take your road trip, the idea of deleting the horse and using some sort of science to drive you doesn't sound that out of control, particularly that there's trains at the time. So the idea of
you gotta think
some mechanical energy
that you could have yourself, though. The weird thing is your own control.
Okay, I get it, but it's not.
Like, you know how you have a fax machine in your house? In the past, you would have had to go to a post office for that.
Yeah, I know, and I know that computers, took up entire city blocks 50 years ago.
Whole continents.
And the idea that you could possibly have a computer smaller than your house just blew people's mind. But it wouldn't have been that hard to imagine, okay, we could do that. We can combine train and carriage.
And remove horse.
Look, there you go.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of an extreme call. Also, teleportation brings in questions about what it means to be alive and where your soul goes, whereas I don't think cars do.
It doesn't.
That's another story. So it's the school holidays, August 1888. Bertha quietly roused her two sons.
Oh, nice.
Teenagers, Eugen and
We're going on a trip.
Richard, and said, I got a plan. We're going to go and visit my mum in Pforzheim, 56 miles away.
Okay, not a small trip.
No. And we're going to take the Model 3 to do it. Karl was still asleep, so she left a note on the kitchen table. Some people call it, they said it was an openly worded message that she was on her way to Pforzheim.
Nice. So she didn't say, I've taken the Model 3.
No.
I'm just gone. Who knows what I've done?
I've gone to mother's. I'm off to see Mumsy with the boys.
It doesn't hurt to tell your husband or wife when you're leaving for the day.
No, and she did. She did. She said, I'm going to Pforzheim.
How deep is he as a sleeper?
Very. He's renowned for it. It's the only other thing he's famous for, the cars and the depth of his schlaf. He didn't know she'd taken the car until he noticed one of the 3 prototype Model 3s, which are probably wildly expensive, was gone. He thought, they're not travelling by train. They've taken my vehicle. So Bertha and the boys quietly make their way into the factory in the early morning. And as Wired notes, when an early Benz started, the early Benz engine, the engine thump, sneeze, thumps to life. With a cacophony of ringing gears, occasional...
I'm guessing there's noise here.
Clattering insanity.
And you throw a sousaphone in as well. Like
you do.
It's a...
Although they can't play until the engine starts.
Okay, fair enough.
That started early.
Fair enough.
Because that's when the drip-filtered food...
And the kids probably don't want sousaphone music.
Not early in the morning.
They want something cool.
Modern, like a violin.
Yeah.
Those nut bags. Or a small trumpet. There are apparently lots of small caliber pops, frantic shaking, and the steady throb of primeval power, all while a mist of oil sprayed and partly burnt fuel forms over the machinery.
It's beautiful.
Loud, clattery, and stinky as shit.
How does it not sell itself?
I don't know.
How does it not sell?
I don't know.
I mean, who isn't thinking, you know what? I didn't like horse farts, but now I want to get covered in a mist of oil as I drive around.
Yeah, I want it to burn on me. And also, I mean, I don't even need the car. I just want the engine. I just want one of those things around me. So that's why they quietly pushed the vehicle out of the workshop first and didn't start it till it was quite a ways from the house.
Ah, smart.
So they apparently, the single-cylinder 1.6-litre engine, they started that by turning the horizontal flywheel. I mean, that would have been my go-to as well.
Yeah, that's how I would turn the keys first, then that. But
So the trip proved challenging for a few reasons. One, directions. Once they finally got into the car and got it rolling, they realised they didn't know how to get to Pforzheim.
She hadn't been there before. It's her mum's house.
Not by road.
Oh. She hadn't been like in a carriage or something? Okay.
Train was standard.
Trains were good.
So they went, okay, what places do we know? They stuck with the places they initially knew and they went towards Weinheim. We all know Weinheim, famous for paper towels.
I need a map now. Just give me a map.
I don't know what a map is.
All right.
In Weinheim, they then headed south to Weißloch, which gets us to the fueling station.
Yes.
So finding Ligroin, which is also known as heavy naphtha, it's part of the petroleum family and apparently used today as laboratory solvent.
Oh, okay.
Sweet. Finding supplies was really important because there's no petrol tank. You basically had 4.5 litres of goo in the carburetor, and once that's gone, you're
How
done.
long is that going to last? What are we doing, miles per gallon or
I could not find
litres
that.
per?
I couldn't find it. But not you're not doing the whole 59-mile one-directional thing.
I'm guessing that.
Yeah, you need a bit more. So Ligroin was available from chemists back then, and the town pharmacy in Weißloch was able to help. So they basically made them the first
There you go.
petrol station for a privately owned company.
So what are people selling it for before cars?
Cleaning your
Yeah, okay.
shoes, teeth? No, probably
So you
not.
can get a couple of litres as you go here.
And along the way further on, they stopped into a few other places and did the same thing. So that's that. So fuel was a problem to solve. Directions, overheating. Apparently cooling the engine was probably even more tricky than finding fuel because, I like this, the engine was cooled using the evaporation of water according to the thermosiphon or thermosiphon system, which is, I know you know, but others may not.
Yeah.
It's a method of passive heat exchange based on natural convection, which circulates a fluid without the necessity of a mechanical pump.
Okay.
So I think the literal version was you had to chuck water on the engine regularly.
No, it sounds like it circulates a fluid. I was imagining the kids in the back have to shovel some water in it. It sounds like there's a slight system here, isn't there?
Little bits and pieces that I read suggested that you just basically splash water on it, but it could be somewhere between a thermosiphon and my method is probably the truth. So they basically had to top up the water wherever they could, at pubs, streams, water out of a ditch, like wherever they could grab water. They also, at one point, the drivetrain broke. It may have melted.
Did they trial any distance before they did
I think
this length?
the furthest I read was about 6K.
Okay. All right. So they've been a lap around the village sort of thing.
At best, yeah.
All right.
And I might be doing them an over-service there. So they found a blacksmith to fix that. The terrain, the roads weren't quite as roady as they are now.
I'm guessing not.
And they weren't built for wooden-spoked, large-wheeled things, so it was a bit rough.
How rough are we talking? There are roads, though, that you can fit.
There are stuff that you put wagons on and things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it wasn't like they're going through the Wald. They were, you know. But apparently, so once you got out of Weißloch, the first gas station, they wander out of the Rhine Valley into the hills. The one-cylinder engine had an output of about 2.5 horsepower. It got up to a princely 500 RPM. It had 2 gears, and they were not enough to get up the hills.
I'm guessing not.
No. So her sons would often have to get out and push.
That's why she brought them.
Yes. Children as workforce.
Mind you, if she didn't bring them, maybe she wouldn't have to push. Be a little weight.
I think the car, weighed 360 kilograms. It's not a light piece of work. So near the village of Wilferdingen, which of course means wolf penis.
No.
Had very steep hills. They got really tired. And there were 2 young farmhands watching. And at first they were like, what in the living shit is this? And finally they went, okay, not monsters. We'll give them a hand. And they pushed. And of course, when you went up the hill, you then had the delight of going
Did
down
they design
the hill.
brakes? Did they design brakes on this?
Tyres and brakes.
Oh, Jesus.
They never had punctures because the rear wheels had iron rings around them and the front wheel was solid rubber. So you don't puncture.
But?
Bonus. No, tyres are great. Brakes. The shoe brake, which was operated by a hand lever at the side of the vehicle, and you basically squeeze it on. Yeah. To slow down 360 kilos of vehicle going down a hill. It's made of wood.
All right.
I read that and went, So when they failed,
which they did, she stops in to a cobbler in one of the villages and says, I want you to line these with leather. So she invented brake linings. Are you serious? On the trip?
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
She invented brake linings. Goes to a cobbler, says, whack a bit of leather on these.
Leather's going to be better than wood.
Oh my God. Like anything.
Yeah.
Wool. I mean, just not.
Did she have a bad experience before she was going down the hill? I mean, they managed to stop.
No one got hurt. The car didn't get crushed or anything. So like it kept on going. There are other issues. So the midway the car broke down for other reasons. Instead of freaking out, she goes, all right, how can I fix this? She used her hat pin to clear a blocked fuel line.
Nice.
And when an ignition wire needed some insulation, I assume it burnt out or rubbed out, she used one of her garters and wrapped it around it.
That is very innovative.
Yeah, so she was just bodging it up along
Resourceful.
the way. Yep.
There you go.
Yep, and inventing shit as she went. So they reached Pforzheim at dusk on that day. So that the trip, they made it.
Did it in one day.
They did it in one day.
That's nice.
It's wild. So she did eventually keep Karl up to date by sending a couple of telegrams.
Yeah, of course.
We're here, champ.
Text
it's
message.
Cool. Yeah, exactly.
Don't worry, love. I'm out here. I'm just taking the boys.
I took the car for a drive.
I haven't left you.
One source notes, none of the telegrams still exist today. We don't know what they exactly said. But the press had already gotten wind of it because of eyewitness reports. So residents in the villages are like, what the fuck is this?
Something's going on.
There's something going on.
It's the farmhands. They get around to the farmhands and obviously newspaper boys. So
yes, and the milkmaids.
Yeah.
And the jugglers, the rolling minstrels. There were a lot of those. Pforzheim was famous for it. Most of them were quite amazed by the car and how it happened to work, although some freaked out for a while. They were particularly freaked out not only by the car, but it was being driven by a woman.
Did they really freak out?
Woman.
Did they really freak out? I think
I wasn't there. I'm relying on secondary sources.
I know that we have talked a lot about 19th century people, 18th century people being astounded by things.
By women's.
But seeing someone in a carriage that's moving by itself, I get it. You go, wow, that's something
I don't think they were
haven't seen
falling to
before.
the ground screaming, my God, it's Judgment Day. I think it was just more like, that seems super dangerous and loud. They may have not heard anything other than a
I'm
train.
guessing it wasn't going at 25 miles an hour very often.
I'm thinking maybe never except downhill when it probably shouldn't have.
I'm guessing they're thinking, that's noisy and weird and it's not my thing right now.
Yeah.
I'm guessing they're not thinking it's the most scary thing in the world.
Well, like I said, it's not like you took it into a 10th century village and they went, it's Satan among us, as far as I'm aware.
I don't know. I just think most radically new things we expect, like you see these time travel movies and you think people are going to be gobsmacked. And I think most of the time people will go, oh, I haven't seen that before. That's interesting.
cool. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Partly because, we in the world, what do they say? The future is here. It's just unevenly distributed. And I think there's a whole bunch of stuff where you go to Tokyo and you go, that's cool. We haven't got that here in little old Australia.
Yeah.
And you go, there you go.
I remember exactly that. My first time in Tokyo, like 2001, they were selling in these electronic stores these little cameras that you could put like on your wrist like a watch, and we were like, whoa, so James Bond. Not like, what is this satanic magic?
No, exactly. People, and I get that that's not, it's just one step above. I think people aren't always astounded. They're like, no, that's cool.
But according to these reputable sources, some were. Not all. They didn't say everyone was running
Renting their hair, tearing at their dresses.
Yep. That's it. They're beating their breasts. So a few days later, they hung out with Mama Bertha for a while, and then they headed back to Mannheim. They took a more direct route.
Why didn't they take the direct route before?
I don't know.
Why didn't they? I know you said
know.
they got lost and there wasn't a good map and the highways weren't highways. But why didn't they take the direct route?
I don't know. It may not have occurred to them.
Let's do the world's first road trip ever on a difficult scenic route.
It's the only one they could work out.
All right.
It went smoothly. Everything worked out. The round trip was about 180 kilometres when you add it all up. And it really paid off. This marketing exercise super paid off. So there's obviously technical developments like the brake pads, the hat pin.
And we're going to need maps. We're going to need cooling. And we're going to need some muesli bars for the trip.
She also suggested adding a low gear for hill climbing.
Okay, fair enough.
And she also demonstrated to the now fledgling motor industry that test drives were kind of essential.
Yeah. It will work, but just for display. That's what you should do with it.
If you want your basic show it off model.
People have always wanted the show it off model.
Oh yeah, that's where you get your folding roof and your extra seat with the fancy aftermarket
and your
mods.
accordion
player. Yeah, just strapped to the front of the car, Mad Max style. Fuck, that'd be awesome. A dude in +4 lederhosen playing his accordion.
You can do that,
sprinting at 6 miles an hour.
You say that'd be awesome, but you could do it if you want.
I'd have to find the dude who's willing, or dudette. If I'm going to abduct someone to do something terrifying.
You don't have to abduct them. You could do this with consent. I don't know why we're abducting here. You could find someone who consents to go on the front of your car playing an accordion.
I think, wouldn't that take more time?
No, it wouldn't. It really wouldn't.
Someone.
It really wouldn't. You could send out a message and say, I'm looking to recreate.
By this point, I've already grabbed someone. before I've even gotten a reply.
How did you find a good accordion player, though?
No one said good.
You're going to get a terrible
No one
accordion
said
player
good.
if you're
Just banging their hands on it in terror. So now the good thing was cars started to look accessible and maybe even useful. People are going, oh, hang on a minute, maybe we can use this thing. And so the success that they were hoping for finally started to pay off.
Finally, I have a way to take my teenage sons to my mother's house.
Yes, and swimming training and to look at the delightful cake stands at full time.
Well, she was already there. She didn't need to go.
But not all the time.
She could have walked.
And then she goes home to
cake
Mannheim
stands.
and she's like, I miss my cake stands.
Okay, fair enough.
I left one at my mother's house. Boys, pop over there. So the Model 3 became the first automobile to be sold in little production runs. They mass-produced or minor-produced. The company moved to new digs. The family got a bit more space. By the time the youngest was born, 2 years later, 1890, test drives for their newly developed cars were like the standard family sort of outing. And often any of the kids might have a crack at the wheel. Daughters, sons, age unlimited.
Why would you not, though?
Have a drive.
Why would you not?
You're 8.
I
Fine.
know.
You're 4. Sit on my lap and drive.
It's going to be fun. What's the worst that could happen?
They've proven you can run into a wall and live, so I don't see a problem.
I don't know. I think there should be more kids sitting on your lap driving your car.
More, other than just you and your two. I put my dogs on my lap. That's the same, isn't it?
Yeah, that's fine. Let them steer a little bit.
They never get in the way. They never overreact.
I don't see the problem. You just put a speed limit on. You say not above
1.
80.
1. You can do 1. If you can make your car drive literally at 1 kilometre an hour, then your kid can drive it.
There are nice footages. It's the gorillas driving golf carts. Driving quite well. Or is it orangutans?
Do they show the whole trip?
Orangutans. No, they're
Just the middle bit.
animals can drive.
I'm sure they can.
There's turtles driving skateboards. Doesn't really count.
It's not really driving. I can move my leg. So within a decade, the Benz and C became the world's largest automobile company.
Oh, yeah.
400 full-time staff, selling 600 vehicles a year. So it worked. Bertha's story is billed as a testament to the often ignored, dismissed, etc. roles of women in the automotive history workplace. I don't like these podcasts where we don't have a beer. I lose my ability to speak. It's just wrong. It's wrong. Karl says she was more daring than I and took a decisive step in the further development of the motor vehicle. So the wash up on this was, at the time, not only was she considered, she took the first road trip, she was also, because of all the stuff she did along the way, arguably the first motor mechanic.
Yes.
Because she just got it all sorted.
It does sound like Karl was the mechanic before.
Well, he was the maker, but she was like I can fix this thing.
She's the first consumer fix your own car person.
Yeah. Don't be mean to Bertha.
I'm not. I'm supportive.
Why are you pooing on her memory?
I'm supportive. I'm just saying that Karl was also a mechanic here.
He's an engineer. They're fancy.
All right.
Also, apparently a few days before she took her trip, Karl got the first driving license in the world from the Grand Ducal Budish District Office.
I was wondering, are they licensed or not at the time?
Well, Karl was. She wasn't. There was your naughty, interstate regulation, whatever. I don't think people were really too worried about licenses given there weren't cars.
Well, and the police couldn't catch him.
If it had been today, she would have had her name all over many of these patents, but because she was a woman and married to a man, etc., she brought the money, she brought the drive, a lot of the technical stuff, but she couldn't have a name on any of the patents, which is a bit shit. Anyway, Karl died in 1929, and apparently then she started to receive a lot more attention. On her 95th birthday, she was made an honorary senator of the Technical University of Karlsruhe, and she was very excited apparently about this. So excited she died 2 days later. But
on her 95th birthday. You could have done it earlier.
Yeah, let's wait till nearly the Queen's age. Hey, acknowledged.
I mean, it's nice to acknowledge, but there are many years.
Earlier.
But it's not like she has done her big contributions at the age of 94.
Nope.
And people are going, shit, get this lady involved. I'm assuming her contributions happened decades earlier.
We're just waiting to see if you're going to do anything better. Oh, no, 95. All right, bugger it.
That's it. You've done enough.
Time. And look, when I first started reading some of the Mercedes links, and all these links are in the show notes, they seemed a little bit to not talk much about her in different. The story's broken up into many elements, and at first I was thinking, you jerks, but then I was wrong. They actually acknowledge her very clearly. They call her the woman behind the automotive revolution, and there's some nice quotes about her. So Bertha Benz was a strong-willed, energetic woman who played a subordinate role in the patriarchal society of the German Empire in appearance only. Only in appearance, because in reality, she wasn't doing that.
She was a trailblazer.
She was a trailblazer. She encouraged her often self-doubting, obstinate and sullen husband, Karl Benz, in her unique way, pushing him to continue time and time again after setbacks, and stood by him for nearly 60 years. She was a woman who shared her husband's far-reaching technical visions completely and made many sacrifices as a result. And finally, without Bertha Benz, there would never have been a Benz company in Mannheim.
I believe that.
Oh, it's very difficult not to believe. So I'm glad they actually step up and say it, but you've got to look for it. You've got to be looking for Bertha to find this. Karl in his memoirs described her as, only one person remained with me in the small ship of life when it seemed destined to sink. That was my wife. Bravely and resolutely, she set the new sails of hope. He acknowledged her too. I didn't get any impression that he was a dick to her or that he wouldn't give her credit.
Except when she took the car.
And he wasn't a dick to her then. And so nowadays, if you want to, people still drive the Bertha Benz Memorial Route. And it goes past that Weissloch area, and the building's still there where she got the Ligeroin. I think it may still be a pharmacy, but I'm not 100% on that.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, so you can go and drive it. Go to Germany.
We should do that.
And we'll record it. We'll do it on Monday.